That's an interesting Halloween theme tune that our streaming service put up. So I'm sorry if it was too loud because I can't change the volume. Anyway, here we are. Welcome everyone again to another episode of the MonoGame University as we dig deeper into MonoGame and showcase what it is to build games, how to put things together, all the tips and tricks you can find out, and also to try and highlight whatever else is good out there for everyone else. I'll say off the top of the beat, if you want to ask questions both after the stream or even during the stream, really, we have a Discord channel which is set up just for this stream. So you can go in there, you can chat. If you've got questions, we'll get back to you and get the lowdown on details of anything that's troubling you or you're having trouble to get to grip with, and we'll get you going, as it were. So if we kick things off, I'm trying to click a button. Okay, so as ever, like last week, this is because I keep flip-flopping between the monthly broadcast we're doing, the weekly broadcast we're doing now, so getting to grips with everything, as it were. We'll go over a quick review of the streaming schedule. Not the screening schedule. I know it's Halloween. We're not quite into the screaming realm yet. That's tomorrow. Over all the different streams that MonoGame are currently running, and also talk about some other ones we're going to be doing. Then we're digging straight into the course. We're following through with the MonoGame 2D tutorial, which is available on our website, which you can delve into. And I don't have the link for it. Where is it? There it is. This is the Dungeon Slam tutorial. This gives you a good getting to grips with everything to do with MonoGame from a 2D perspective. Don't worry about 3D. 3D will be covered in some later sessions once we get through the whole 2D side, as well as we're going to do in some shaders and networking and other sort of fun things. And if anyone suddenly throws a really interesting question, we'll try and delve into that too at some point in the future. We'll go over coding questions, any questions from the channel, answer anything that anyone comes up with, but also highlighting. So in the streaming schedule we have our monthly open house. That's where the foundation comes up. We tell you exactly where we are with the foundation, what the funding is, what the input is, how things have changed, what's going on, and we give you the lowdown and everything you need to know for what is MonoGame, and also being very transparent from the foundation about what we do. We've got one weekly schedule released every Friday, which is usually Tom or myself, with some other impromptu sessions where we're digging deep into the actual MonoGame code, fixing issues, looking at PRs, working on things and see how they do, as well as obviously what you're running now is the university. I've just noticed it's still called the Creators University on the sheet. We'll fix that. But we've also got other streams coming up, which we're stay tuned to find out. We're thinking about doing a spotlight, play testing some MonoGame titles, talking with some developers, their tricks and trade. We'll see what comes of that. So this is the two main schedules we've got at the moment. This is Thursdays for the university and tomorrow, Fridays, for code time. So tune into whichever stream you find most useful, or just watch them both, or watch them all. We love you watching them all. It'd be very good. In that case of one thing I'd like to call out, I think as a common streaming thing, if you're on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Every click helps, as well as if you're watching us on Twitch, go and hit that bell and get following us. As is the common thing these days, these help us, help the channel, help MonoGame, get funding, get things going. And the more we can have funding-wise for MonoGame, the better, because we can do more things like this and we are going to do more features and things, as it were. Anyway, so one thing we'd like to call out, at least for the next coming weeks, Aaron Langille has actually published a book on MonoGame. So this is the latest and greatest. It covers everything to do with MonoGame. You're not going to get the live interactive chat while you have this show, but it's very good. It's a good read. Lots of chapters, lots of content, goes all the way through and keeps you up to date. And also, if you're out there, you can obviously follow us on Twitch or YouTube or Facebook and everything else in between. But anyway, Obviously, like it as well if you can also help and subscribe, also support MonoGame in any way you can. Again, you got all funds for MonoGame go to making the framework better and also for hosting different streams and things like this. Let's get away with that. Okay, so on with the show. My ever-growing shelf. I have a new thing which I'm building now, which is the Millennium Falcon. Well, if you love creating, you love developing, you love creating things. It's fun just keep tweaking things through. So if we look at what we got here today now, MonoGame, from the birth of its origins in XNA, is a very powerful framework. It's not an engine, it's not a GUI, it's not some interactive thing, it's code. You take your assets, you put them into code, you put them on the screen, and you do funky things with them and do lots of different funky effects. Now, there are a lot of different ways you can do these things, but what we're finding and what we're also hearing is that MonoGame now, like XNA's predecessor, is starting to be actually taught in universities and other higher education facilities, because the best way to get involved in code and start to learn good code and how it works is to put fun things on the screen. And we see a lot of things out there which do a lot of the same things. So, for instance, from the MonoGame site here, I've been pulling out, as ever, some of the latest and greatest content out there. So, obviously, there's Aaron's book. You can find that out there, whichever way you look. It's on sale from Rutledge. Well worth a look, in my opinion. But one thing that was really highlighted out to me recently is there's the Let's Code playlist. Now, this is one of the sheer power of MonoGame that's useful for learning to do things. This course was written on YouTube 5 years ago. It's still relevant today. There's no other game framework and things like whether it's Unity, Unreal, things that were written 5 years ago. Ultimately, either won't work or there are a lot of twists and turns and things. But the only thing that's changed in this course and the way it's gone through is how you create a project. And if you watched last week, which we'll recap again on this week, creating a project is a simple case of just .NET, brand new project, pick a platform, tweak it. That's it. There's nothing fun or fancy. There's no waiting half an hour for the editor to open or lots of things to compile. It just works. Alongside this as well, someone else has also showed out in the Discord, which we'll go to shortly. There's a nice little shader tutorial now. Where shaders come in is that code and art and that's it, something getting on the screen, fantastic. Where you go from there is then how you then change or layer over that content to make it more attractive. That's it, whether you're actually putting additional lights in it. This is the same for 2D and for 3D. You don't normally hear it in 3D, but I'm really excited to get to the 2D shader course when we get to once we got to this, which is also going to be available for our patron or sponsors. We're setting up our new sort of private access repo for getting early access to a lot of the new tutorial content and also get first in there to sort of ask questions of the authors and things. And it's really good. If you've seen the promos, there's several different shader effects in 2D. Those kind of things also apply in 3D, but also teaches the tricks of the trade for how these shaders work. And also, as any author who works on work for MonoGame, I unfortunately have to get through my vetting process, and I'm quite vicious. I don't apologize because it's for you, for the community, for reading these things out. You get the best of what we can have to offer. That's both from my perspective and also what these authors are generating, but also to highlight things that go wrong and how to cope with them, how to get around them. But anyway, this shader tutorial, it goes through a lot of the different basics, how structures of how shaders work, well worth a look. And also on the MonoGame Reddit, you see lots of different funky things. This is something that caught my eye just today. Is this going to play? Where someone's actually applying a sort of 2.5D shader effect in their 2D game. And I must admit, it just looks cool. I mean, the shadows are just really soft and fluffy. And also to call out as well, so people are out there, they're building things. This is one developer who's just started. Really going to highlight this because it's showing great effort and work. Now, it might not look much to the screen because you've seen your Halos and your Squid Game games or anything else. But this is a lot of effort to really call out from a relatively new developer who's building things. This is showing things like doing collision detection, which we'll go through, different ways of rendering things, hit detection, input controls, sprite effects. All of this we're going to cover in this course, and they're going out there and they're doing these things. So the only caveat I say is that if you're doing and building projects like this course, you do everything from designing the game to getting content to getting the game running, testing, but also packaging and then shipping the game. It's really important to ship it, because as the age-old saying goes, 90% of the effort is in the last 10% of the actual project scope of getting everything packaged up and shipped out, learning how to handle the stalls or the different ways they do things. We'll go through as much as we can. If you've got questions to ask, we'll do. If you're jumping over onto the Discord, highly recommend going through this tutorial section. So Arcturus has got a rendering speedrun, or Mudsi, who's developing Arcturus, if that's the game, and he's showing you about different rendering effects. A bit more advanced where this course is going, but we'll come back to that later. Blitzcrafter showed a nice little 2D depth water effect, which is very nice. As well, you can go and watch this yourself. It's all on the Discord. Everyone out there, developers in the MonoGame community, are about the most open I've seen anywhere in any framework or engine, because they're always willing to help. They're always out there, ask questions. There's no such thing as a dumb question. You ask, you're not sure, you look at what other people have done, and everyone learns. Which is the great thing about it. And also, this is where I saw about the relaunch, not only the relaunch, but the Shady tutorial, which is fantastic. As I said, the community is on there. People are showcasing things from the Diaries channel. That's where the Retail Shadows come from. And also showcases what people can do, whether it's 3D. Oh, yeah, will this play now? Yes, it's playing. This wouldn't play for me earlier, which is fantastic now. So someone's showing off now. They've generated a 3D terrain editor in MonoGame, which is just fantastic. And let's see, can we skip forward? Can we see some terrain? There we go, we're doing some terrain drawings. Let's see some nice texture splatting, raising elevations on the map. The one really good one for this, let's see if I can find it. Now, anyone who knows me knows I know this site well, because I created it. When XNA was on its way out and it's dying, and Microsoft was going to shut down all the educational stuff, we migrated everything here. And slowly but surely, when we get time, we're also trying to move these to MonoGame. But they're mostly in XNA. But down here is the Reimer series. Now, this I did spend a good few months upgrading. And Reimer's is another good, fantastic resource. Where he showed them how creating 2D games, but also more importantly, there's 3D terrain using height maps, and also even building a little small flight sim, which is just lots of fun. Fly your X-wing around a city and shoot things, do stuff, and shoot balls. It's very simple. It's very basic. It goes through all the little funky things you can do. But I digress. So yeah, it's doing some other things on this. Oh yeah, there was a game launch this week as well. DSS War Industry. I must have now. The sheer amount of troops and things that are rendered in this game. I'd love to get the developer onto one of our shows just to talk through this. My guess is they're using kind of ECS or entity control system, where you change significantly how you render things and how you move things. It's a different architecture approach. We're not going to cover this in this course, but it's worth looking at and just seeing the kind of things you can get out of MonoGame in the most basic level, and then what you can do to try and expand upon that. But also, fellow MonoGame developers, go and support their game. It's quite cheap on Steam. I believe it's also 10% off on its launch at the moment, if at the time of recording. But anyway, right. Before we dig back over, let's have a quick look at chat. Hello. All the friends and favorites are in there. No questions. You're all quiet this week. You were rattling my cage last week, but anyway. So let's get back to it, the course itself. So last week we went through setting up a GitHub repository for your new game. We highly recommend you use course control. If nothing else, you can track what you've done, and if you break something, you can see what you broke when. I'll highlight a bit of that now. We also then set up the brand new project, and it ended up in the repository, which I did not open up before the stream. There we go. That's MonoGame, and let's go down here. No, there it is. The MonoGame University 2D tutorial. As you can see, there's lots in here at the moment. One good thing, we're using GitHub, but you can use whichever source control project you want, whether it's GitLab or any of the others. I like GitHub because things like this. There's a fully featured web VS Code editor built into the actual web browser. You simply hit the full stop or period key, and you're into editing mode, and you can see the project here, how it is set up. And also, we can go. Let's go back. Can we go back? Let us go back. Yes. So this is the source, the repository set up now. Which we've cloned locally, which basically is making a linked copy of the project that's on the cloud on your local machine. So now this looks like exactly does on the server. So I go in here and I open this in VS Code. I can see here now this is exactly one-to-one matched with what's on the server. But I can make changes locally. When I'm happy, I can then push them or put them up into the cloud. That way I've always got an active backup. But also, if I go into, this is what I call the source control tab. This also shows me what's changed. So this is what files I had at this point of time. I added all of these files. This is what changed. Did any of this change? No, it didn't. But these are all brand new, so it's unchanged as it were. But we are going to make some changes to this straight away. He says having a drink. All right, okay, so Square Bananas is just thrown up now. Reimer's 3 and 4, yes. It takes a lot of effort to migrate sometimes content, especially Reimer's content, which is a lot of shader-based work, so it needs the shaders updating to more modern standards, even from back then. I mean, it's nearly 15 years old now, that original tutorial, if not longer. And yes, those need slightly updating. I got as far as doing the flight sim tutorial, which I think was tutorial 2. So the last two need updating, and I promise, Scout on it, I will try to get around to that, he says. So yes, thank you, Square. As for Cooksy, no, interrupt, please do. This is a live interactive chat. This is why we're here doing this live, doing the streaming. You can ask questions at any point in time. Even if it's not direct, I prefer if you keep it directly related to the content we're trying to show, just so everyone who's learning is learning at the same pace. But if there's something burning you want to ask it. If need be, if we've got time at the end, we'll come back to it. If I can answer it, I will. If I can't, I know some people who can. I'm very much a very open book when it comes to education, is that I don't try and make answers up or pull them out of thin air or trying to think this is what the answer should be. No, I prefer to get the specific bit of content to answer what your question is, to get the answer to get you where you need to be. Are you going off on a tangent? A lot of us have spent years or decades sometimes in education where we didn't have AI and some other tools to summarize things, so we had to go and look for stuff. And the amount of content out there which is not right or accurate is amazing. And I thought I'd turn that off. Thank you. Right, so here we are, we're at our project. Now, if I go back to the tutorial, which is over here. So we start off here. You can read through the tutorial, it's on the site. If you need a link to it to follow along, it's there. I'll throw that up again. So that's the tutorial we're following. We've gone through the beginning of the overview of what is MonoGame, so you can look back at the last week to see what's in there. And in here now, we're case of like we've gone through the getting started. We've set up our environment, which is basically making sure the tools are installed, whether you're on Windows, Mac, or Linux. MonoGame supports all 3 platforms. As equally as we can, we're still working on improving some things to do with Linux. But ultimately, there are a few of our team who predominantly work on Linux, so it's in our best interest. getting all the setup installed, getting templates installed. If you're using Visual Studio, it's full Visual Studio instead of Visual Studio Code, then there's an extension in Visual Studio for getting the templates. Otherwise, for VS Code and Rider, you're just installing the .NET templates and setting your project. We're using VS Code, installing some extensions to make life a bit easier, including a MonoGame extension, and that gets us roughly to where we are now. We went through, we set up the project. Now, I've set my project slightly different to how it's done in the tutorial, but mainly because there's more than one way to do this, whether you're using the C# template or whether you're using a VS Code template or Visual Studio. It sets up slightly differently. Now, the reason why this becomes important is that one thing that the 2D tutorial tries to teach you is good project structure, because if you're building your game once and you're just never going to build another game again, a simple basic project template is fine. But in reality, we're not here to build one game or build one game and only ship on one device. We want to use the power that is MonoGame to put it onto the Steam Deck or onto the web or onto somewhere else, and have it different ways to be able to build a project. But we only want to write this thing once. We don't want to keep writing the game many different times. Go and write it in Swift for on Apple devices, or go and write it in Java for Android. No, we're using C#. We want to write things once. So one thing this tutorial is really good at teaching you is good, better practice when it comes to architecture. That means the actual runtime, the platform project you're running is very, very thin. It's just what's needed to run that platform. All of your code gets put into a shared library and a shared space, which is used by all your different platform projects, which means you write code once. Some of the more advanced tutorials also talk about having multiple content projects, which we'll come on to later, which is where we store and package our assets for then delivery into these solutions. One thing that people miss, or they get when they start to struggle with things like the content pipeline for managing content and assets in your project, is that yes, you can build your game without using all the fancy tools and just load files. But what you lose is that when you go to console, you can't really do that anymore, because you have to pre-compile your content in advance, or there's a different way that content is serialized or changed on a different specific platform, and the content pipeline deals with all these complexities for you. So you're doing build, not doing, right, I need to write a different set of command line things to package this stuff in this way because I'm going to this platform. It's a long running debate, and feel free. But so as it stands here now, and where we need to lead over to is, this is our VS Code solution now. I see. Now I've minimized this down. Can't remember how to zoom. There we go. I'm zooming in for the stream because I get told I am old now. I need glasses, and this probably helps me a lot more. So we created our source control project, which is just a blank template. We've created our brand new .NET project within here, and that's all contained here within this one folder. So again, this is where we talk about, if I were just doing one project for one platform, that's fine. But everything's in this one little place, and we want to separate that out so we can make things easier for setting up later. Once you've set the project up, there's two real things you need to do. Well, I didn't clear that out from testing earlier. That shouldn't be there. I'm going to ignore this. I'm deleting that because it doesn't. What we're going to do, effectively, we're going to move our .config folder over. Now, what this is in today's MonoGame, we're using what's called the MonoGame Content Builder Editor, the MGCB. It's not very friendly. We do apologize. We are working on ways to improve that. One of the ways we can improve that is by getting rid of it. And we're going to take things back down to almost how they used to be, where we have a project, a simple normal .NET project, and we simply put all our content in there, and we have a small little runtime which says this is how you build it. We'll go over that probably in I'm hoping to do an impromptu session on this as soon as I get some bandwidth, and I stop getting chased by them hounds at work for getting things done. So that's our .NET config. We need that as for all the projects in the solution to see it. So you should only have one, and it should be in the root of your project. The other thing we need to do is we have what's called the solution file. Now, the solution file describes all of the different projects in your solution. So in this case, we've got a platform project for Lunchtime, which is targeting Windows Desktop GL. And in here, you can see that I've simply got an entry here for here. Oh, it's a bit smaller on this screen. Can we move this over? There we go. So we have one project definition, which is our Dungeon Slime. And if we move this into the root, it means we can add other projects a lot easier. But if we're moving the file manually like this, we also need to make sure we tell it exactly where it is. So we're in the Dungeon Slime folder, and there's our Dungeon Slime project file. I'll save that. And if I look at the power of Visual Studio, if I go run in debug, the very first time you try to run through the editor, it's going to make a line and not work. Why am I not working? Okay, close you. No, I want to run. There we go. Right. Must be because I had the solution file open. There you go. We live and learn. So the very first time you try to use this in VS Code, it's going to ask you, what is this project? It checks in advance because certain solutions can have multiple different things in there. It could have some Python code, it could have some JavaScript, some TypeScript, lots of different things. So it's just checking, what are you running? In MonoGame, we'll C#. Don't I say? Then it also suggests, what is the project I'm going to run? In this case, it's the MonoGame University. So it's going to. It's not going to like. No, it's not going to like me. This is why we do this. So we can go run. So, okay, let's try running here. There we go. That obviously worked brilliantly. Why do you not like me today? Oh, let's do it through command line then. Should investigate why that's not working later. Go to Dungeon Slime, and I'm going to do .NET run. Do you know what that's going to do? I must have set something up properly there. There we go, and then we just check to make sure the project still runs, content still builds. We have a nice cauliflower blue screen we had previously. And now we can actually start to delve into, as the main focus for this chapter is this file here, the game1.cs. I can get rid of the terminal, I can make this, just miss. And we can walk through now what makes a MonoGame project. Okay, let's see. In. Right. Okay. Leandro, I will come back to you later. I have no idea what that means. Okay, so back into our actual thing. So, up at the beginning. So, chapter 3 is more of a theory, but we can actually go through more question and answer about what this really means. So the game class is the main entry point for any MonoGame project. It's the first place it goes to start. It's not the first place the .NET project goes to start, because the .NET project is like, knows nothing and says, go here. First place it goes is here, it's the game class. And in here, as we can see in the actual project itself, okay, we can see this clear here. We've got several things set up in here. We have, importantly, the game, a class that inherits from the class game, which is our all-encompassing home of homes. This is where your MonoGame project starts. Invariably, you should only have one in your project. There are ways to have more than one. A bit more advanced for what this is. Simplest case of, you have one. Your project starts here. From here, everything gets rendered to the screen, everything gets updated. We can do lots of things later on where we can define what are called scenes. And basically, that's like saying, right, well, if you're going over here, I want you to render this way. And if I'm going to go this way, I'm going to render this way, whether it's a game screen or settings screen or a pausing screen or credit screen, or call these scenes. It's more of a terminology thing. And in here, it's a case of there is a .NET entry point, which is this is everything's going to do to set up. We'll come on to this later. We have an initialize, load content for loading content, an update, and a vault draw. But what do these all do? Which is a quite critical thing to understand and learn. Now, MonoGame runs on what's called a game loop. Now, this is not unique to MonoGame. This is the same for almost every single other game engine or framework out there. Programs themselves are static things. They put something on the screen, they wait for something to happen. We can't have that in games because occasionally we need to be able to say, right, has the user pressed something? Has to do something this? Checking constantly of things that are happening. The same happens when there's stuff in the actual game itself. So I've got an enemy who's doing a patrol route. I need to check every few milliseconds. Right, he's moving. He's going to move to here, 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 here. Or has he seen you? Has he not? These are all things that happen in the background while your game's running. If you happen to be looking at that thing at the time, do things render on the screen. This is where it's very important to understand the game loop as it relates to games. So once the actual application started, the first thing we get to run is this initialize. Let's make this. I was going to put this on a bigger screen to make it easier. We have the initialize. So this sets up all the environments. So this sets up all the rendering. It sets up any in-memory things that you need to have access to at the time. We'll learn more about what we do to initialize as the course progresses. Effectively is get ready. So these are the default states. This is the screen I should be starting in. These are setting up input and things like that. Once the environment's ready, we're then going to start calling load content. Now, this is all done automatically for you by MonoGame itself. This is simply the loop. You're putting things into these methods, and MonoGame is going to handle them for you. And load content, as it suggests, that's where it's going to integrate with the content pipeline, and it's going to pull in any assets you need for this scene. If you've just got one game class, nothing else, you're pulling in everything. You don't generally try to load things as and when you need them. You load them in advance. That way they're sent up to the graphics card or they're made available in memory in the game so that it's very quick and prompt to get things up on the screen, and also ensure that there's no latency or delays. When the user presses that key, your character's going to move left, or they're going to jump, or they're going to fall down a hole and then die, as invariably happens with a lot of these games. Then we have a continual running loop, which is what we call the game loop. Update gets called first. This is where we check the current state of our game. We update things, whether the character's moving, whether someone's pressing the keyboard, when they're inputting. There are effectively two types of update. There's update and there's fixed update, which is what we do. We have a difference of things where things that can happen as the game progresses and things that happen to happen at a specific time. There are different loops. For now, it's just things to know. These kind of things exist, but as we progress on, we're going over. In the update, the first thing you arguably check an update is, has the user asked to get out of the game? Have they pressed the escape key or pressed the escape button, or some way to get out of the project? And if it has, we get out. We clear things down. We'll load content now it has been loaded. We clear down any states, and then we safely exit the program so that you're back to your machine. Everything's good. If we're continuing, then we get drawing. So once we know where everything is or where things are in the game, we can actually then start to present or publish things to the graphics card to actually draw on the screen. We also do things like playing audio and other fun things between the update and draw. How you handle that is a point of conjunction. Generally speaking, in update, you're doing all your movement of stuff, checking to see if things are touched, looking to see if anything should happen, reacting to that, and then playing audio. And then draw is the fully focused element of batch up everything you want to need to draw to the screen and push it, along with lots of funky things. So how we do when we get to this setup, the two main things you'll see here, especially when it relates to 2D, is we have the graphics device manager. Well, actually, that's 2D and 3D, which is this is our entry point to the graphics device. This is how we're going to draw. Anything we're going to set to the screen, anything we're going to render, anything we need to integrate or get out of it. The graphics device manager is what we're using to send things to the screen. We're also getting this back from there is the state of how big is my screen? Am I in a window? Am I full screen? Am I not? Am I showing my mouse or not? There's lots of different properties and settings that the graphics card and the machine will tell you of the operating state of that environment. Now for 2D, also for lots of 2D rendering, because you can do 2D rendering in a 3D project as well. We have what's called a sprite batch. Now, what this is a customized batching process, which means it tries to be as efficient as possible. So if I've got lots of things to draw to the screen, we pass them to the sprite batch, and the sprite batch then compresses them, formulates them, pushes them to the graphics card in one go. There are ways to override this, which we'll come on to later. But by default is you're trying to make this as a streamlined function as possible, because this is the update loop that's going on. I'm updating things and I'm drawing to the screen. I'm updating things, I'm drawing to the screen. You do not want draw to be delaying for the next update to happen. So you're pushing things to the screen as fast as possible. You have like 1/16 of a second to be able to process this, which might not sound much, but it's actually a fair amount of time from a graphics perspective. Yep. There we go. So it's answering questions in there. Thank you for that. Yes, the update and draw loop. So all of this rendering cycle, all of this is handled by MonoGame. You're simply taking code, put them into these methods, here, and here, and MonoGame is doing that all for you. There's nothing you need to do. There are ways to override this and do your own thing, but from a basic perspective, you write code, MonoGame runs it. Let's go and hide that. It is a quite important process to get across about what MonoGame's doing for you. Almost every other engine does this. They just have different ways of implementing it, how you pass code to them, and the order it does. If you're unfortunate enough to deal with Unity, is that's a many-headed beast about when things run. And generally speaking, 9 times out of 10, that's generally where things go wrong. So when we go through our initialization process of actually setting up a game, we're making sure that we have a new instance of this graphics device manager. So your game has access to your graphics card for rendering to the screen. We're setting up where your content's coming from. This is important because it's where in your project the actual content comes from. When you're looking here in your project, you can see here there's a content folder. That's the default location. It doesn't have to be there. It can be elsewhere. If it moves, you need to tell the framework before you start running where it's getting content from. That's simple. And other little options we can say, is mouse visible? Can I see my mouse on the screen? Okay, so if I go, so for instance, in here, in this game, so if mouse visible is true, so if I run that, are you going to run? No. I'll have to investigate why that's doing that. Go away. Thank you. So if I do not run now, so is mouse visible is true. You can see here when I move my mouse, it's visible on the screen. But it's not bound to the game. It's just simply a case of like, there's your mouse screen there. If I stop this and I go and comment that out, comments in C# of 2 forward slashes, anything after that, the compiler or the program will ignore. I go and run this again. He says, now if I move my mouse over the screen, you can't see anything. Because it's telling, the game is saying that once you're within the bounds of my game window, I'm in control, your mouse is not going to be shown. Anyway, I digress. Back to here. In the initialization function, now it's important you leave in this base initialize, because basically this also tells MonoGame to do its whole international phase. And when you look at the code, you can see here that you write all your game's initialized in your own initialization logic. So that's setting up any variables, any state parameters, any other stuff that you need for your game to run. And then you're basically telling MonoGame, right, go and do your thing now. If you remove this line, you'll find you'll have problems. Don't. And here we go. Right, okay. You can read that. That's not important. Okay, so we get to load content. So we've gone through the game loop. We've gone through initialize. We're ready to get set up, and we're going to load content. In here, the first thing we do, we're actually, when we're getting ready to load content, we're also setting the environment to do rendering. So here we're going to set up our sprite batch, which needs our graphics device, so that when I'm batching images up, I need to know which graphics card it is I'm talking to send things on. You then in here, you do all your content loading. We'll do more of this later. This is more of just an overview. Oh, I just noticed I left my ticker off. Put that back on. Okay, then we get down to the core, the actual game loop itself. This is where we're doing update, draw, hand in hand all the way through. If update slows down, your draw slows down. If your draw slows down, your update slows down. Unless using what's called the fixed update. That's something else for later. And here you can see we've got a simple check. If the user's pressed on a gamepad or a keyboard or a mouse, we want to exit. And then we're simply calling one method which tells MonoGame, clean up, drop everything down, exit the program safely. And then we basically tell MonoGame to update as well after we've done our update, same as the initialize. And again in draw, we're then saying, right, set your rendering state, do some drawing, then you're telling MonoGame to draw. Again, very important that these base functions stay in there, because then they're passing the control back to MonoGame to go and do the next thing. Quick pause. Okay, so game components. Yes. I don't think this tutorial covers game components, but they are a very good thing to do. What they are is, so where you've got your game class here, it's doing all this work here. A game component is like a mini version of the game. So it's like a mini game that you can basically say, instead of writing all the code and put it in place, you can write it into one place and simply say to the game, right, go and do this. And it will do its own little updates and its own little draw functions. There are two. There's game component, which is like a back-end update only component. And there's a drawable game component, which also does drawing. This is really handy where if you want to have enemies that are rendered on the screen, but you don't want to handle in your game code, or some background effects, there's lots of different things you can use this for. But again, from an architecture standpoint of view, you need to stay aware of what's in your game and what's doing. So we're not specifically going to call this, but they're good to know. There's like a little mini game running inside your game, often its own little world. Well, we get back to it now. So as you can see, we're not doing much. Unlike, let's see, we've got a nice screenshot of Windows XP Solitaire screen. Yes, drawing things onto the screen. But as Chris points out here, one simple thing we can do to change this now, if I hide the here. So we're setting our content. We're turning our mouse off now. If I wanted to, I can also do nice dot. Thank you. You showed it though. No, stop it. Autocomplete sometimes helps in. Yeah. So this is basically saying to the graphic, I've initialized the graphics device. Now I'm actually saying, well, interested to see what happens here now. This might mess up my sharing my screen. We live dangerously. We just tell it we're running full screen, or we're running is it windowed, and there's a lot of other different options. But you can see the moment we're doing cornflower, when we start our game, we're doing color cornflower blue. Let's change that. Let's go for. Why is my IntelliSense not working? Why is my IntelliSense not working? So why is the bottom of my screen not rendering? Oh, okay, no solution. That might explain things. I didn't have a solution set because I moved the solution. I wonder if this will just run now. There we go. No, you're not going to be that kind to me, are you? So let's go back here. Now, bear in mind, this might break things on my stream because I'm changing the screen resolution that I'm running at. Let's see what happens. If I disappear instantly, oh, there we go. Hey, there you go. My game's now running full screen. I also can't see my mouse, which is not great. Also, it's thrown away all my screen and settle. I can't see anything. All right, and let's stop that running now. Where are you? Where is it? Go away. Turn that off. Never do that again. Ah. See, this is why we do things, just to break them and see what happens. As you can see, then the screen, if I turn it back off and run it again, it's now rendering orange. If we wanted to, we can go and change this again to another color. Let's go. Let's have another color. Let's see, blue. No. Blanche. What's blanched almond? I don't know what blanched almond is. But let's see. No, that's blanched almond then. Who knew? Any road. Right, okay. See, this has thrown off all my windows. Why have I got an image of Dungeon Slime? There we go. So as you can see, changing it changed the effect of our game. So what we've changed is the order of this is what I'm drawing to the screen, and I'm basically setting it to orange. And it's important to know, kids, like, this is a constant loop. Things you do have an effect on how the game runs. More importantly, is depending on the power of the platform you're running on, will have more or less of an impact on how your game runs, which is why it's critical when you're building your project, you test on as many devices that you intend to run on. So if you're building for Steam Deck, test on a Steam Deck. If you're building for some Android phone, test on an Android phone. Different systems will behave differently to what you'll do. Some can handle larger memory arrays. Other ones can handle more things thrown to the graphics card at the same time and shrug it off. To be fair, most modern mobile devices now are almost like full PCs in the hood. So they do a lot more than what they could do in the olden days, in my day. In my day, we had a BlackBerry, which was like a little touch screen, and you played Tetris or Snake on it, which was fun. But anyway, this is pretty much all we're going to cover today. Now we'll go through all the nubbins that are behind this, what's involved with the whole game loop. We've got. Let's test my knowledge on these. So, can the game class remain? Well, of course, they give me a rename. You can name it whatever you like, so long as you don't change this game class. I'm cheating. You can get the answer to the question. Should get everyone else to answer them. Sprite batch for for batching things and making them optimized. What is load content used? Well, it's used to load content after initialize is called. And how does MonoGame provide a delta time value? That's a simple thing. That's something in the framework, so that every time your game loops up, the amount of time that's passed between the last update and this update is called a delta time, or sometimes called an elapsed game time. And this is important for several reasons, which we'll come to a later point. So we can see we get this game time, and we have game time. This one thing lapsed is lapsed game time. There's different variables and ways this is used. Now, where this really becomes important is when you're doing things like animation. So if you need to be able to change from the image showing here to the image showing here, you need to know how much time has passed to know how much to rotate it for how fast the screen is refreshing. Too slow, and it's just going to do that. Too fast, it'll be gone before it's even rendered. Time is a crucial factor when it comes to games, and how much time has passed since you last did something, whether it's a case of, well, I want the user to press a button, but I don't want to press it too often. So if they're doing this, I only want to register one every second because I don't want them slamming the screen. So I check for a key on 1 second. I wait until a full second's passed before I then start looking at the key again. So no matter how much time you're pressing, you can't cheat my game by bashing the keyboard. No, it should not be allowed. Right. So I highly recommend, if you're not done it yourself, go back through this whole chapter, learn about the whole game loop. Most importantly is focusing on this and understanding this basic logic around the game loop itself, because it's very core to mechanics. Now, this loop applies to all of the code you write, not just your main game class. So where all your main code's running one way, you can call out all the code which goes off and does something else. that can have more or less of an impact on what your main game is doing. And it's very critical then when it comes down to performance tuning your game, knowing where the time is being spent. And there are libraries and utilities out there to try to monitor your game to see where time is being spent. Is your game graphics heavy, so all the time is being caught up into the actual draw call, or whether something is being code specific and it's actually draining and spending time in code. And you want to balance the two to ensure the fact there's a smooth transition in the loop constantly to hit your frame rate. You'll often hear calls from different developers saying, well, I'm games running at 60 FPS or 30 FPS, which is frames per second, which is how many times this loop is running every single second. And then you'll get people complaining because your game's up to like 2 frames per second and it's unplayable. Which happens occasionally. But anyway, let's say, any questions? I'm hoping the viewer count's not been impacted too much by the time zone change, because with the clocks going back this week, it's interesting. I even had to update the schedule time on this, so hopefully people are not going to turn up in, was it 10 minutes? And then the fact of waiting for the stream to start and it's not. I do apologise if it does. Let's have a quick look back. Now, there's one ping question which I'll come back to. And let's see. Until we'll go to. Yeah. Yep, we do say that if you can, please help support MonoGame, whether you're buying from our shop. Where's the shop link? I've lost all my links. I lost the shop. You go to the MonoGame main website and there's the shop link, which is at the very bottom of the page. We can buy all nice little attire like MonoGame t-shirts and things. Or as ever being a stream, like and subscribe. Or if you're on Twitch, go and hit the bell and go and follow us there. So every little bit helps. But anyway, back to the questions, because that's what we want to do. Okay. Ooh. Again, yes, interrupt me. I don't care. I'm here to answer questions. Don't know what we're removing. Okay, let's go to this ping question. So, one quick question. Now, this is something that does come up frequently. MonoGame supports a vast array of platforms, and for that, we need to maintain the native code for all those platforms. Hopefully, you can't hear the dogs right now because someone's just come in the front door. So we support Android, most Apple devices, not the Vision Pro. I don't think. Never tried it. We've got Windows Desktop, you've got Linux, you've got Mac. We also support all the popular consoles, everything from Xbox all the way through to the Xbox Series X. PlayStations from 4 and 5, probably 6 when it comes out. The Switch 1 and Switch 2, as well as the Steam Deck. Although some people notice some issues in Windows on Steam Deck, it's almost better to actually build it for Linux on Steam Deck. You get better performance. And with MonoGame, it's a case of you're just building for Linux and then shipping it. It's no more difficult than that, realistically, except you've got to ship on Linux. And so on and so forth. But when it comes to web, now MonoGame doesn't have a native web platform. It is something we'd desired or like, but there's too many other things to get done in the way first. So, and the amount of games that get shipped on web are minimal. Most people have got on device and things like that. So MonoGame has to focus on where the biggest bang for it bucket were. But this is where the community comes in. This is where we really love the community, because Ncast has got a project called KNI. Now, here's a challenge. Can I find it straight away? There we go. That's not hard. So we have the KNI framework. And what this is a fork, or basically a splinter of MonoGame. It uses all the same MonoGame backends, but it's got its own web platform. This features pretty much everything in there. It allows you to then build it up. There's full instructions. Ncast is very good for its documentation for how it's going. All you're really going to do is set up another project in your solution, and you're going to reference all your game code, and then you're simply going to build it for web. and it gives you a nice little web browser and the game running in that. I think several people have taken samples and pushed them to there. So it's good to use, especially if you want to put up a demo or something, or just showcase something on it. And Ncast, we fully support him well from here in everything he does until such time that MonoGame can actually publish its own web platform. We have got 2 PRs on moment. No, one full PR, and there's some other work going on about a web back end. But the biggest challenge you have in there is getting it deployed in a browser. Everyone sounds fantastic. It's easy. It's because, just put it in the browser. It's that easy. But I wish it was that simple. Because browsers are very independent beasts. They're almost monolithic architectures of this app that runs on all your machines. But they've got code in there that runs the web almost way back when, from when it was first made back in the 1900s, not 1900s, but in the 1990s when the web was first published. The browsers still have to be able to render things from back then. So there's lots of different layers of code in there to ensure that all the old stuff works, but also then all this new stuff in different ways, and people keep changing it. But the web platform is advancing. There is things called like WebAssembly, which is basically packaging your code to support a web browser to make it easy and quick to access. There's different ways to access the graphics device. When you want to then start connecting to other things like your sound card and other things, it has to provide little routes and access that can be controlled. But as most people see, there's not a day goes by when there's not some other alert about some breakage or some change and some security fix that's to come, which generally comes down to the whole web architecture, the way it's built. One day we'll get a web that we deserve. But anyway, let's hide that. That's a choice to chain, update, and draw to other classes. We will come to this. So, see, one thing we'll come to later. So we talked about the concept of scenes, and that's where I basically say, right, I'm going to write code. This is just for how the game draws when I'm doing this. So if I'm running the game, I've got another class which is going to show how to run in the menu, and we will cover this. This is in later chapters. So thanks for pointing out that is coming. I've still got that running. Turn that off. Right. What else we got here? Yep, we talked about game time. So game time obviously being the time in between every single frame of the game as it runs. Yes. We talked about game components. Chris or Aristotle, who's the one who was actually wrote this story, is on the chat, so he's answering questions before I get to there. Oh yeah, I've got one. Is MonoGame available on Mac? Yes, it is. So all of the so you get it started. In fact, Christine covers this in the Get It Started. So if you go into not that one. In here, we've got full instructions for setting up MonoGame on your Mac, setting up on Linux, whether it's Arch Linux or Ubuntu. Thank you, Chris, again for setting up the Arch Linux docs. Windows, whether using Visual Studio, Reimer, Visual Studio Code. If there's something not covered there, log an issue on MonoGame, and we can see if we can get around to actually documenting and publishing it. In here, talk about all the different setups and things you need. Linux and Mac do have extra steps because they're not native .NET platforms. While .NET is built for it, there are no little things, so there's no issues with Silicon. You need to set up today a facility called Wine. That's mainly for building effects because it needs a Windows environment today. I keep saying today for building effects. Tomorrow or in later releases, we're hoping to try and do away with that for future platforms. For existing ones like OpenGL and those, you'll still need them. But for the more modern platforms like Vulkan and DX12, we're hoping to get rid of this. And people who have to forced to use Wine will rejoice. Okay, so is MonoGame fixed? I'm not quite sure on something questioning lies. But essentially, no, you can use MonoGame on whichever operating system or platform you run. and you can build from almost any other platform, although always the caveat, and this is no different anywhere else. If you're running on a Mac, you can build for Mac, you can build for Linux. You can't build for Windows. You need a build host or some automated way to set up to be able to build your Windows and a Windows environment. Similarly, on Windows, you can't build for Mac and iOS. You need a Mac and iOS. But Linux you can build everywhere. So if you want to talk to everyone, build for Linux. So much fun. Yes, Elias, thank you. A common question, okay, so Unity, Unreal, everything else exists. Why would I go bother building my engine or my game when these things exist? You know, MonoGame is just a framework. It doesn't give you anything. You're building everything out of the box. Now, what this gives you is that it gives you the power and the full control of doing things the way you want to do them, the way you're ordering them. If you're using something like Unreal or Godot or Unreal, then you have to build your games in the way they build them. And it's not always true to say that that's in your best interests. A lot of cases, when you're trying to build things around, you want to do something, but the engine's preventing you because it doesn't want to do it that way. It needs to do it this way. I'll go and use this other feature, but there's a bug in that feature, so you can't use that. So something else. This is my life, unfortunately. So allowing MonoGame doing C#, you have full control. It's almost like you wanted to write your game in C++, but don't want the hassle and all the problems of handling all the memory management in C++. C# handles a lot more things for you. You're just writing code. It makes it a lot simpler. It's just as fast. There are ways to even performance tune it and make it even faster. And there's a lot of debates and things about which one you go. But ultimately, you write the way you want to write. I mean, MonoGame supports things like F# if you're function-oriented. You can even write in Visual Basic and use MonoGame. You can't with those other platforms and frameworks. It's more about flexibility, openness, and also I'd actually argue you learn more about building a game by building it yourself. And that's not to say you have to build it yourself. The MonoGame community is vast. We have lots of things out there. So if you look at, we'll point this out, there's the lovely, if you look in Discord, there's this libraries discussion area, there's in fact the libraries channel. And in here you can see there's lots of different libraries and things to help you build your game. You don't have to write it all yourself. There's UI features. If you've watched previous open hours, there's GUM, which is fantastic. If you want to have different ways of drawing fonts, I'd almost highly recommend it, of using font libraries. Apostrophe and GUI, more library. There are also, there's even full engines written on MonoGame, so you can take away a lot of the grunt work and do it all for you. Lots of things down here. If you go through the discussions, there's lots of different things in here which will help you along in what you're doing. I just realized I'm doing that and you can't see it because I switched scenes. Let me go back. Right. Quickly then. On the MonoGame Discord, we've got the libraries channel, which shows you all the different libraries. This is maintained by the moderators from MonoGame, showing all the different things. So GUM, fonts, queries, things on there. And then a whole discussion channel about people who are promoting libraries and packages and things you can in there. Go in there, look, you can see. Right, come on, we're just over time. Let's see if we can get a few more questions in. Also, yes, you can write your own game server. It's a slightly more complicated question, and I'll try to see if we can schedule something for that in the future. You can. It's all .NET, it's all C#, and it can be running MonoGame. But if you're running a game server, you don't really need graphics. You just need back-end code. So it's almost more efficient to write just a C# library to accompany it. You can develop and test a new game locally, having the library run locally. But then you can go and package it into what's called a Docker container or to all the different cloud hosts so you can run things. So you can, whether you would, is another question because servers have different needs and means, but you could. We'll look at this. The question is going in fast now. A bit more an advanced question for those who are asking. yes, the default process for MonoGame using the update and the draw loop is that it does that as fast as it can. So if you watch Tom doing the coding, and I think if you watch tomorrow, he's going to be doing some work on the Ascent demo. He's had that running at 2,000 FPS in MonoGame. We just let it go, off it goes, it's fine. However, running at faster frame rates for things which have fixed step operations, things like physics, so things falling from the sky, running at a specific rate, need to have a guaranteed amount of time that's running that. They can't have it going faster or going slower because that would change how it would work. So there's where you have what's called a fixed time step. And in there you have a loop which guarantees to run every 1/16th of a second or however often you need it to run. And that loop runs in the background and it's like tick, 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 and that's it. It won't change no matter how, unless the game sort of really grinds a halt and you're doing something funky and really draining resources. It will do its best to stay in that fixed loop no matter how fast the rest of the game is running. This helps to ensure the fact that things are predictive and happen when they need to happen. What's a good project to learn game making? Well, it's funny you should say that. If you become a sponsor, there are 2 projects now which are kind of available to sponsors only, which is our 2D platform tutorial. Let's see if I put me on the spot now. Can I find these? They're in the news channel, but we've also got there's this. Okay, so there's the 2D platformer starter kit, which is built with MonoGame. You do .NET new 2D start kit, and then you'll get a full game working, which is everything in there. Lots of code documentation in the MonoGame.samples. Oh, I'm doing that, but I can go here. Learn samples. There we go. We got this. There's the platformer starter kit. This includes all documentation for how you can actually get started. If you don't want to use Turtle's fantastic 2D course, you can learn that hard way like we used to do in XNA. This describes all the game has working, and here. But we've also got, recognize things, we've also got the 3D platform star kit, which is available to sponsors only at the moment. And this is a full 3D platformer game. Uses Blender to edit the levels. We even have a level editor using Blender. And lots of funky things there. Shows you shadows, so lots of effects, fun stuff. We're trying to increase how much starter content we got available. So once it's at our preview, it will become fully public for everyone else. And then more content will be lined up for the sponsors to get advanced previews to things. So we've got full Ascent demo, 3D demo. We've got a FPS starter kit, and it's just the start. We're going as fast as we can. There we are. People have been given links to the platforms. There, see, like being links to everything now. And okay, I've just done the fixed time loop again. So, right, 10 minutes over. I'm getting better. I'm trying to keep this to an hour, to keep it very easily bite-sized for people to adopt, and so on and so forth. Anyway, we'll come into a close there. Thanks to everyone for joining. You can catch the recording of this on YouTube and on Twitch while it's still on there. And with any luck, I shall see you next week for what's coming up next. Let's see, chapter 4. Oh yes, now creating a class library, very important. This is where we talked about modularizing your code, so you keep your code in one place, your runtime platform in another. You want to add another platform, you just add another platform project without running your code. That's next week. For now, I'm signing off, and I wish you all adieu.